Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to build a scope plugin from scratch without really writing any code yourself. So we are going to vibe code the whole thing using Claude Code and get this interesting Film Noir dark aesthetic that you can see just right now. So if you watched our previous tutorial on building video effects plugin, you know that a scope plugin is just a Python package, essentially a schema for UI controls, a pipeline class, and some effect functions. The structure itself is simple, but writing GPU shader code and some schemas from scratch can feel intimidating, especially if you're not coming from a professional engineering background. So today we are going to let AI do the heavy lifting. I'll show you two different approaches. The first one uses an MCP called Context7. It gives Claude access to the latest scope documentation, so it can generate a plugin from the official patterns. And the second approach uses a Claude Code skill that we built specifically for scope plugin creation, basically walking you through a guided flow with questions and then generating everything for you. Both approaches get you to the same place, a working plugin installed in scope with live UI controls. So let's jump in. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to show you is how to set up Context7 in your Claude Code instance in VS Code. So I'm in my plugin with MCP directory, and I will just open VS Code in this one. So I already have my Claude Code pre-installed here. As you can see, completely empty directory, nothing has been created yet. And the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to vibe code my way in by just literally asking Claude Code to install an MCP for me. And I'll tell it, can you install the Context7 MCP for me? The command is, and yada yada, the thing that you have here is the npx command, making sure that we get it. So I'm just going to hit this one and see what happens. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. So in the background, Claude Code will install this for me, and that will enable me to get and use pretty much the access to the latest documentation that I have. So let's give it a second. I could have, of course, done this myself by adding these declarations in settings.json file, but since we are vibe coding our way here, I'm going to do the entire things by vibe coding so you can see how it can be done. Yeah, I'm happy with this. Let's do it. All right, it says that it's been added. It says I need to restart this Claude Code session, start a new one for MCP server to be picked up. You know what? I'm actually going to do that. I'll kill the entire VS Code. I'll just repeat my command here, code dot, so I can open my VS Code here. And let me see if my MCP is now available. So what I'm going to do, I'll just ask Claude Code. Yeah, I want him to tell me to which MCPs it currently has access to. And hopefully MCP that we just added is one of them, the Context7. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so that's it. Claude added Context7 to our MCP configuration. You can now see it listed here. And now let's actually make sure that it actually works. So I'm going to ask it if it can use Context7 to look up some details about how Daydream Scope plugins work. So keep in mind, this is a simple way for us to feed the latest documentation to Claude Code itself. We released plugins very recently. So the thing is that, models are not trained so recently on the things that have been changing, just a couple of days ago, or maybe just a couple of weeks ago. But with an MCP like this, we get to feed it the latest information. As you can see here, it is able to read about the project structure for scope plugins. It even understood that there is this video effects pipeline class for scope from the previous example that we've built. And based on that, it should be able to help us understand how to build our own plugin. So let's see what it did. Okay, it checked the plugin architecture, project structure. This looks fine. Plugin schema, pipeline, and effects. Okay, let's see some comments. Good. Key components. This also looks good. Hook implementation looks fine. Schema as well looks fine. Okay, this is good. So this tells me that Claude Code was able to ingest and understand how our plugins can be built. Okay, so this is fine. Now when we see all this happening, let's do the next step. So, what could we do? Let's build it. I want something. I want a Film Noir effect. You know, that classic black and white cinematic look with high contrast. So I will paste my prompt here, and that prompt says like, hey, I want to build a scope plugin creating that Film Noir effect with classic black and white, high contrast. Can you look up how scope plugins work and build that for me? I just hinted, you can use PyTorch to make sure that we get this fancy nice GPU acceleration. So let's see what will happen. This might take a while because obviously Claude Code will come up with a different API. Oh, sorry, with different to-dos for us. You can see again that it's constantly making those calls to MCP Context7 and querying docs, trying to understand whatever it needs to do for us. And it laid out a really nice list of to-dos. So pretty much what I need to do now is just check and reflect on the changes that it's making. Generally approve them. I could also say, instead of ask before edits for, to let it rip on its own. But for now, I prefer to have a full control and I can easier. And that also makes it easier for me to explain what's going on. So, okay, it created a project toml. You can see the project entry point with the scope Film Noir plugin. Yeah, I'll allow writing to it. That makes sense. It is also creating this entry point here. That is fine. It is registering those effects under this scope Film Noir. That also looks good to me. I'll expand this one so you can see in real time how it's building these things. It's always kind of cool to watch. And as we go, it's updating step by step all the things that we wanted it to do. Keep in mind, still, I haven't wrote a single line of code. I just told him, I want this Film Noir effect and, please help me build it. And bam, now it created this entire schema for me. So obviously I'm going to have a couple of effects and a couple of UI elements stored and shown here in this UI field config. So contrast, brightness, black and white. Okay, let's see what happens next. Yeah, I just added it here. I like how it keeps updating those to-dos for me. So at any point I know exactly where I am. So it has these three effects, three functions. Now it's going to create each of them. So the grayscale, yes, that's fine. Vignette, yes. I'm not even going to look into the tensor operations that it's doing. It changes to pixels, to gray, any matte behind it. I'm just going to, let in the vibes and see what we end up with. And now it's going to build a pipeline pie for me, basically chaining all those effects together. And I'll be able to see how that looks in a moment. Yeah, as I mentioned, so Film Noir pipeline, in our calls, grayscale, vignette, film grain, all of them here. That looks fine. Yes, go ahead. And now it's registering this one. Remember, as I said in our first tutorial video when talking about this, it actually registered it properly here, almost like lazy loading so that we can get a faster startup times. And I'll hit yes. And this pretty much concludes the entire stuff. This generated my plugin. What I need to do now is go ahead and test and see if this thing works. It tells me what it built for me. That is correct. That looks fine. It even explains what each effect does. That's also okay. It introduces some UI controls in scope and so on. All right, so in scope, I have a couple of options to install plugins. I can point it directly to my local directory here, or I can actually push this to a GitHub and then ask scope to use that GitHub repo for me. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a little repo, push that there, and just ask scope to use this, to just use this repository. So yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a repo. I'm going to initialize it and then run scope locally on my machine, point it to that repo and see how it will work. So let's do that. Okay, so I pushed this to my repo. It's called Film VFX MCP. And I actually added Claude as a co-author because, he did most of the job. I was just telling him what to do. Now I'm going to run scope locally on my machine and feed it this GitHub URL and see if my plugin will work. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start scope locally. I'm just going to hit uv run Daydream Scope and give it a second while it spins up on my local machine. Okay, it says that unicorn is running here. Let's hit Control C to see if that is the case. Probably opened it in the background. Yep, it's here. So let me go to our settings, to plugins. And yeah, this is the one that I built earlier. Let me try and install this one. So I'm just going to go with git plus paste this thing here and hit install. Let's see if it works. All right, it's installed, restarting the server. And now my plugin is going to be visible here with some details. I don't know if I asked it to add some details, it's still installing it. We'll see in a second after it restarts it. Okay, server has been restarted in the background, loading all the plugins that I currently have. Film Noir, there you go. And now, the moment of truth. Let's see if this thing works for me. So I'm going to switch to video mode, this file, and it should be under my pipeline. If I go all the way down, Film Noir, it's currently turned on, contrast, brightness, vignette, film grain. Okay, we have a bunch of those effects. Let's hit play and see what happens. So it should transform this video of a cat and apply this aesthetics to it, and I should be able to move these sliders in real time and see how it affects them. So let's give it a second. Oh wow. This is pretty cool. Let me remove this film grain just to see how it will affect it. Yeah, there is no grains anymore. I can add more of it, I can add less, I can play with the vignette. This is really nice. So I got the entire plugin coded for me just by telling Claude Code how to do it and by giving it access to our LLM-friendly docs through Context7 MCP. Now let's do the same stuff, but this time we are going to use Claude Code scale. So pretty much we are expecting a similar output, but just a little bit of a different approach. Okay, so now my second approach is to use something called skills. So Claude Code supports skills, and skills are basically encapsulated. You can almost think of them as really finely defined skills with additional context that is needed for Claude Code to understand what it needs to build. And we've built this one called Scope plugin skill for Claude Code. It's an open source repo. You can go in and check out exactly what it contains. It has skillmd, which is a main file explaining what we wanted it to do, to gather specifics, to ask users different questions. We also provided with some reference, like which files it can use, basically given it even relevant files, maybe some examples, and so on. But the first thing here obviously is to get this skill to my Claude Code, and this README walks you through that process. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to repeat the same process. So I'm going back to my terminal. This time I'm in a different directory. It's called plugin with skills. So again, I'm just going to go code dot and open a new VS Code instance. Again, as you can see, I have nothing visible here. I'll just switch to my Claude Code. Nothing has been installed. So again, as always, we are starting from scratch. The first step would be for me to install the skill. What I can do, I can go git clone this entire thing, or I can try and actually tell Claude to go here and just install the skill for me. Let's see if that will work. So just pasting the URL and asking him, can you go there and install the skill for me? I have no idea if this is going to work. I was actually thinking about maybe going and just cloning the repo, but hopefully it will work. Let's see. Cloning the repo, okay, that's fair. That is what we wanted it to do. Throw it into temporary directory, and then I'm assuming it will add it to my real one. It will move it there so it's available, or it will actually move it to the Claude ones so that it is available for everyone on this machine building with Claude Code. So let's see how that will work. I will probably have to restart Claude Code again once this is done, just to be sure that it has that skill installed. What did it say here? Okay. It's sim linking it, that's fine. So I can easily just access it and putting it to a persistent location. All looking nice so far. It checked the content of this directory. It already has something there, which is good. All right, and it says I can use it by typing create scope plugin, or I can also pass in a description, create scope plugin, a Film Noir black and white effect with vignetting. You know what? I'm going to copy this prompt because I'll probably need it. I'm going to, what I'm going to do, I'm going to kill my VS Code now and open it again because I need to restart this instance of Claude Code so it can pick up this skill. So let's see if that happens. I'm now in the same directory. I'm here, and I could just paste that prompt that I copied in the previous step, but I should also check out here. Will it show under the command menu? So I should have, there you go, create scope plugin. So it allows me to interactively scaffold and complete Daydream. Okay, this is nice. You know what? I'm just going to hit this one and see how this will work. This one should show me some questions and be more guided tour for me. So let's see how it works in practice. All right, it's reading its own reference. It's understanding the examples that we've given it, gathering all the requirements, and then hopefully it generates all the files that we need. It's even hyping me, saying that it's a great and perfect idea. No, it says actually it's a perfect fit. Okay, how do we call it? So this is what I like, right? So the skill, we prompted it and asked it to actually ask you questions. So I'll go with Scope Film Noir. That sounds good. What pipeline type should this be? Video input pipeline sounds good. An effect. You know what? I actually want vignette, and I want film grain, and I want this one. We don't need contrast for this one. I'm just curious how this will work. Okay, submit answers. I think it has all the context that it needs now, and it should be able to generate a full plugin for me. So let's wait. Back at it with to-dos, explaining what it's going to do for me. So similar steps as it had before, but now you can notice that it's not making any calls to that config, to that MCP, right? So everything is happening here on my machine. It's working on it again, starting by creating PyProject toml, and it will go through those same steps as we had before, I assume, creating effects, pipeline, schema, effect chain, and then, at the end, it will even create like a README file for me so that we can see how that works. This is the config. Black and white saturation, vignette, and film grain looks good. Now it's going to create effect modules, and then the pipeline, chaining them all together. Yeah, now it's creating one by one. It's going to, I'll open it again so you can see. So it's created desaturation one. Now it's going to build vignette. There we go. And then there is this grain. Again, same steps as before, just a little bit of a different approach. In this skill, we actually also asked it to create this README MD file. So once I commit this to another GitHub repo and test it in scope, which I'll do in a minute, you'll also be able to see this nice README file with the details about this plugin. Okay, this is nice. It created all the parameters in the table and explaining what do they do. Okay, let me allow it to write to readme.md, and after that, I'm going to create, as I said, another repo, push that there, and test it out in scope. Let's see how will this end. Right, again, summarizing what it did, live sliders we can play, and telling us how we can work with this one. All right, let me go and push this to my GitHub, and I'll be back showing you how it works in scope. All right, and I'm back in my GitHub, and this is my repo with Film VFX skill, so basically the one that we just generated. And as I said earlier, there is this README file showcasing the different parameters. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to scope and try installing this one. So I'll go to plugins and follow the same convention I had before, basically just giving git to my Film VFX skill and hit install. Let's see what happens. Okay, it says it successfully installed my new plugin. Server is being restarted in background. Once it's done, yeah, server has been restarted. Plugins will be reloaded, and I'll see more info here in a second. Bam, bam, bam. Yeah, you're good. We have them. Okay, let's go and see how that works. I'm going to switch to video input, and for the pipeline, I'm going to go with my new Film Noir. So let's hit play and see how it works. Okay, there you go. So pretty much we have the same experience and same stuff that we did before. I can obviously turn on and off different effects. So for example, I don't need a film grain, but I would still like to keep it black and white. I might decrease the vignette intensity a little bit, but increase its radius and play around with it. So we ended up with having literally the same plugin, literally the same results and pretty much the same controls here by following two different vibe coded approaches. So depending on what makes more sense to you, you can do the same. So if you need more control, for example, and you want to do a little bit more fine tuning and tweaking, then you can go with the MCP. If you want to get to your result really quickly using that user-friendly dialogues where you can just enter the name of the plugins and maybe describe effects, you can go with the Claude scale. And that's it. So we went from 0 to a working real-time video effect plugin using nothing but natural language and Claude Code. You didn't even have to know Python knowledge. Obviously, it's useful if you do know it, so you can catch some errors if they happen along the way. But the idea is that you let the AI build it, you install it and tweak it. If you want to follow along at your pace, we have a fully written tutorial linked in the description covering both approaches in detail. And if you're feeling inspired, try building your own. For example, a cyberpunk neon glow or maybe a watercolor painting effect. A bunch of options are available. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.